Imagine living on a set monthly salary and struggling to make ends meet while rent, grocery, and medical costs continue to rise. This would leave you feeling trapped and powerless. For millions of Americans who are elderly or disabled, this is their everyday life. There is hope. In today's video, we'll talk about this historic legislation. A $380 direct payment is provided as a lifeline by the Relief and Economic Support for Seniors and Disability Recipients Act, which aims to lessen the impact of growing costs on consumers. The method of creation, the impact on the most disadvantaged, and any prospective future chances for financial assistance. Let's start by taking care of the main problem, which is the $3,800 direct payment. This relief package is a laborious compromise between conflicting political parties that was initially reprieved after months of intense negotiations. Republicans argued for a lower flat rebate of $1,000, while progressive Democrats wanted to reimburse the poorest households up to $6,000. The final figure of $3,800 proved to be a fair compromise that would make a big difference without substantially increasing the package's overall cost. More than $600 billion. The recipients' current federal benefit methods, such as physical checks deposited directly into their bank accounts or direct express cards, will be automatically used by the Internal Revenue Service, IRS, to dispense the payments. One of the relief measure's most noteworthy aspects is how smoothly it is distributed. This tactic minimizes inconvenience and ensures that individuals who meet the requirements get their money efficiently. The payments will be made in line with the Social Security pay distribution schedule, starting in late June 2024 and going gradually until early August. Though these payments provide recipients with immediate financial assistance, it's vital to keep in mind that they are considered taxable income and, as such, must be reported on tax returns in 2023, even if the beneficiaries typically do not file due to their low income levels. Although this requirement adds a layer of complexity, it is necessary to follow IRS laws. Ease. The unwavering increase in consumer prices has left millions of Americans struggling to make ends meet. Thus, the approval of this bill is a rare example of bipartisan collaboration in a Congress that has typically been deadlocked. While we evaluate future issues surrounding economic support measures, we hope that the $3,800 payments will greatly lessen the financial strain on elderly and disabled individuals to pay for needs and restore some financial stability. Massive and seemingly unstoppable inflation. There's growing speculation about additional aid initiatives. The Congressional Budget Office, or CBO, predicts that inflation will remain high for the next 24 months, which has sparked discussions about more fiscal policy initiatives aimed at lowering consumer expenses and raising family incomes. But because Republicans and fiscally conservative Democrats are reluctant to embrace new, expansive economic initiatives, the political landscape is challenging to maneuver. As we get closer to the 2024 presidential and congressional elections, there is still controversy around progressive Democrats' claim that the current crisis calls for decisive federal action. It is imperative that we make large cuts to spending elsewhere while navigating the complicated terrain of economic policy and relief efforts. To recognize the complexity of the issues we face, the $3,800 direct payment, while a significant step toward addressing the immediate needs of vulnerable groups, is simply one part of a much larger picture. A complex network of political intrigue, economic theory, and real-world applications lies behind this relief package. We must examine more thoroughly at the fundamental causes of the current economic crisis and explore long-term alternatives to bailouts in order to completely appreciate the relevance of this law. The fundamental issue is the persistent danger. Inflation can be described as the overall rate of increase in the prices of goods and services, which gradually reduces the value of money and erodes purchasing power. On the other hand, healthy economies typically have moderate inflation. Economies have always suffered from inflation. Economic growth. A lot of conversation and concern has been raised about what's causing the sudden and steep price increases that we've seen in recent months. The complicated solution is the result of several interrelated circumstances, such as the COVID-19 aftermath, labor shortages, shifting consumer demand, and interruptions to the global supply chain. Outbreak. Let's look at each of these components and how the rise in inflationary pressures is attributed to them. First and foremost, disruptions in the supply chain have been highlighted as a significant bottleneck in the manufacturing and delivery of goods and services. Global disagreements. Disruptions have been brought about by both practical challenges and natural disasters. Delays brought on by shortages in supply chains and logistical difficulties for businesses worldwide, affecting everything from computer chips to lumber and all in between. A shortage of necessary inputs is causing businesses to struggle, which is driving up costs and driving up inflation. Lack of personnel is a significant contributing factor to inflation, as businesses find it difficult to hire enough people to meet demand. Rising levels of demand. Pre-existing labor market trends were exacerbated by the COVID-19 pandemic, forcing many workers to reevaluate their goals. A mismatch between available labor and available opportunities causes people to reconsider their career choices, or perhaps quit the workforce entirely, which raises wages, increases production costs, and ultimately raises prices for pent-up demand for goods and services has increased, surpassing supply and driving prices higher across a range of industries, from travel and leisure to home remodeling and technology, as lockdown restrictions lift and economic activity kicks back up. Meanwhile, the picture of inflation has become even more complex due to changing patterns of consumer demand. Lastly, the economy is still being impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic's aftermath, which is intensifying already existing vulnerabilities and raising inflationary pressures. The epidemic has resulted in a spike in demand that is exacerbating supply chain pressures and causing inflation, from enduring health problems to interruptions in childcare and education. Disrupted the lives and livelihoods of individuals. Amidst the current state of economic instability and unpredictability, policymakers are confronted with a daunting task: controlling inflation without hindering economic expansion or exacerbating inequality. Conventional monetary policy instruments, such as interest rate hikes, have their limitations when it comes to supply-driven inflation, which is why certain economists recommend more inventive approaches. One potential course of action is fiscal policy, which comprises taxing and spending by the government through the application of particular relief measures like tax credits, guidelines for direct payments, and infrastructure investments. Policymakers must carefully calibrate fiscal policy measures to prevent inflationary pressures from getting worse or the economy from overheating. They have the power to boost demand, boost consumer spending, and lessen the financial burden on underprivileged populations. Implementing structural adjustments that focus on the root causes of inflation, such as to solve labor shortages and supply chain disruptions, policymakers should invest in infrastructure, education, and workforce development to strengthen the economy's resilience, reduce traffic jams, and boost output to finally reduce inflationary pressures. Furthermore, international cooperation and coordination are necessary to resolve supply chain disruptions on a worldwide scale. In order to stabilize the commodities markets, participants must work together to identify common challenges and implement coordinated responses. Nations have the ability to mitigate the adverse effects of disruptions in the supply chain, reduce price volatility, and promote economic stability, but reaching a consensus on these challenging issues can be challenging, particularly in the current political environment of polarization. Political impasse over climate. Ideological disagreements and the power of special interests impede meaningful policy reform, making it challenging for decision-makers to reach an agreement on how to handle pressing economic concerns. Even if it's easy to feel hopeless and dejected, history has repeatedly shown that perseverance. What does all of this signify for your family and you? Together, we can surmount even the most formidable challenges with ingenuity and collaboration, garnering public backing, holding decision-makers accountable, and building a brighter future for all. Loved ones. The $3,800 direct payment is a significant first step toward relieving the financial burden that many Americans face. But it is clear that this issue is far from being resolved given the high cost of living and continuous increase in inflation. To get long-term alleviation, many further actions may be required. Please share this video with anybody you believe will benefit from knowing this crucial information. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel for the most recent updates on this unfolding crisis. When we band together, we can overcome these challenging times and fight for the support that our most vulnerable communities need.